When Palworld was first revealed a couple of years ago, I definitely thought the game looked interesting, but also wacky at the same time. But the sheer similarity the game's pals held to that of Pokemon made me feel like the game would never actually release. We all know Nintendo is notorious for their efforts in chasing anything and everything that is even seemingly resemblant of their own IPs. So why would a game with designs so similar to that of Pokemon not be shut down? I'm still confused by the fact that not only did the game release, but it isn't just a meme like I thought it was going to be. Instead, I've been surprisingly hooked into the gameplay loop of Palworld, sinking over 8 hours over the last few days, and man is this game much more than just an asset flip or a Pokemon ripoff with no true inspiration. Amazingly enough, Palworld is much more creative than any Pokemon game released in decades. I was initially unsure if a game like Palworld was even going to appeal to me, after I heard that it was a pure survival game with typical denominations such as stamina and hunger bars part of the game. I'm not reluctant to play these types of games, but I've only really dabbled in the most typical within the genre, with games such as Valheim, Ark, and Terraria probably being the most prominent I've had any sort of time with. Survival games are great, but there's such a large number of them currently out there on the market, and although some of them were their inspirations better than others are more than often lesser versions of games that already exist. I was unsure if a Pokemon-like game could even capture that same sort of flair in the survival genre, or to what extent survival elements would reign supreme in Palworld's large wall of inspiration. But this is distinctively a survival game that takes elements from the very best in the genre and creates something that is pretty polished for what is an early access game. No, Palworld isn't the best survival game out there. In fact, it's not even close to the very best, but Palworld doesn't fall flat on trying to make its own stride in the genre purely on the survival elements, but it has the best mechanics from a range of survival games, and then has a twist in its pals mechanic. Like any other survival game, you need to scavenge for resources, craft, and build your way to survival, but Palworld plays a new tune on this long established genre by the manner in which your pals contribute to the survival process. You can get them to do a variety of activities from cooking to crafting to speed up the process of your progression, but most importantly assist in your quest for survival. They don't only circumvent the survival process in the game, but instead they're also the dangers within it. There are humans scattered around the world, however I have personally not engaged with them very much, as I've been playing around with other mechanics such as base building, and I've not exactly ventured far from the starting point even 8 hours in. I think it's time we talk about the base building and survival mechanics a bit more, which in general is super fun. I'd say 60% of my time in the game has been spent on constantly upgrading my base and ensuring that my pals were committed to their work. Without pals, I can't even imagine how slow the base building process in this game would be, but the addition of them adds a new element of fun into sometimes a rather mundane activity. I have had a lot of fun just walking around my base, adding new facilities such as a hot spring to make sure my pals don't get stressed, or scavenging for berries to ensure my pals are all well fed and energized. In building your base, your primary concern isn't just yourself, but the very survival and well-being of the pals you've captured, making sure they've got beds to be refreshed in the morning so they're able to do the tasks you need them to do. The game also allows you to quickly automate a lot of the mundane activities that you need to do to continue progressing your base, such as collecting basic resources such as ore, wood, and stone. You're able to create logging yards and stone pits, and if the attributes of the pals you've captured and assigned to the base line up with a facility, they'll be able to contribute greatly to that activity. I haven't collected basic resources such as wood and stone for hours in the game, because this very process has been automated, allowing me to better build my base up with more advanced facilities such as a medicine bench or a workbench for gear tailored for the pals I have in my party. Sure, my actual home in my base is quite horrid even now, but for the moment the utility of it all is working out awesome. When you reach a certain level, you're also able to make another base in the world, allowing you to further build up facilities around the large world at your disposal, ensuring you've got resources sufficient for your journey. But enough chatter about the base building. Let's now talk about the pals themselves. Capturing them is easy enough. You lower their health through attacking them yourself or assigning a pal in your party to do so. Once you've done this, you'll throw a Pokeball capturable resemblant POW sphere, in which a capture rate percentage will show up, showing your chances to capture a specific POW. Of course, just like Pokemon, the lower health they are, the easier they are to capture in addition to their level. Capturing a POW several higher levels than you might be a chore that might take multiple attacks from your POW in addition to a few POW spheres being used, while a lower level POW might be captured with relative ease. The overall loop of capturing POWs and then assigning them to your party or to working on your base and its facilities is one that is absolutely addicting. As a huge Pokemon fan myself, this feels like an innovation compared to the stagnant releases of Game Freak over the last 10 years. Not only is capturing in this game much more interactive in how you have to approach it, either attacking the enemy yourself or through the addition of your POW's attacks, but the entirety of the gameplay loop itself is addictive. It's been a while since I've been this addicted to a game, and I feel like I've only touched the very surface of possibilities in this game. You've even got a POW deck, which is essentially a Pokédex, and in addition you've got a POW box that you can browse through the hundreds of POWs you'll be capturing throughout your journey. I've found that the best way to level up and gain experience is actually capturing POWs opposed to just killing any you see, which makes it a bit more of a challenge to level up. Not only do you have to constantly gain the resources needed for POW spheres, but you've got to ensure you can capture larger POWs that might take a higher tiered level of spheres, known as mega spheres. I'm pretty sure there are even more tiers of these spheres, but these two are the ones I've currently unlocked. Resource collection, crafting, and battling is the main gameplay loop in Palworld, and oh man is it a blast in every way. Speaking of battling, I think it's time we delve a little more into this aspect of the game, as it is one of the game's main draw points. I think we've all seen gameplay of someone sliding down a mountain with a submachine gun in hand while shooting at the POWs around them. This game's got a wide variety of weapons, from general spears, different types of elemental bows or even crossbows, to of course the aforementioned guns. But the most special part of the game isn't just how you mix into the battling component with your variety of weapons and tools in battle, but it's the POWs that you collect. You can assign 5 at a time in your party, and each of them have their own unique abilities in combat that makes them much more viable in different battles. They have their own elements too, which means the prospect of elemental weaknesses means you have to switch up what POWs you are using in different encounters in order to have a better chance of taking down a stronger POW. POWs have different abilities unlocked as you continue to level up as in Pokemon, and these attacks can be switched at your convenience, allowing you to truly customize your battling experience in the game. You've also got a stamina wheel you've got to be conscious of in both battling and exploration, as running and dodging will quickly complete this bar and put you in danger if you're not careful enough. In addition to the general battling you and your POWs do together, you can also mount several of these POWs that both fly and gallop on the ground, and although I haven't done this yet, you can even put different POWs on your back to attack enemies in sync with you. I for one saw a submachine gun attachment for one of my POWs, allowing them to use a submachine gun in battle with me, which I know would spice up the battling even more. Galloping on one of the POWs and then using a crossbow to lower enemies with them is super fun, in addition to the fact that you can control them while you are mounted. For example, I can use a POW's different abilities if I'm mounted, allowing me to control exactly what they are going to do, making this another viable way of combat in the game and in capturing all the POWs that I want. Before we end it off, I think exploration earns its own discussion too. Traversing around by flying around the scapes of this world is super fun and engaging, and Palworld also borrows elements from games like Breath of the Wild in terms of being able to climb anything you see as well with your stamina wheel. Your POWs add great variety to the traversal in the game, as instead of running around yourself and depleting your stamina, you're able to gallop around the lands or even fly around, allowing you to explore the world much faster and in greater detail. Palworld looks beautiful and is honestly better in a graphical lens than games that Game Freak has developed in the last decade. I haven't even explored much, hence why this discussion will be brief, but there is different biomes and environments which offer their own unique POWs to capture and battle, in addition to the fact that boss battles with different POWs are also scattered around the world, keeping you constantly busy into the exploration of this huge and varied open world. There are also dungeons in which you can attempt to fight even stronger bosses for further progression, which will need you to be at your absolute best in order to take them out comfortably. Everything about Palworld's exploration is great, and in a more in-depth review I'll do later on the channel, I'll delve more into this facet of the game, but at the moment most of my time has been spent investment in my base, constantly ensuring that it is up to date in upgrades and facilities. The overall gameplay loop of Palworld isn't only fun and riveting, but it's also much more creative than many survival games I've played in years, and surprisingly enough, it's the best Pokemon game I've played in a long time. I hope you all enjoyed my first impressions of Palworld and were able to determine whether this game is worth it for you. It is on Game Pass, which is where I'm currently playing it, so you can always give it a go there if you're understandably reluctant to purchase it from the get-go, especially because the game is in early access. I'll have a more in-depth review on the game as soon as I think I can properly delve into all of the game's mechanics, but for now I hope you enjoy the wide variety of reviews I'll be releasing over the next week. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subbing to the channel and dropping a like, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.